Ultimate Spider-Man is phenomenal, and this origin of Ultimate Mysterio is even better. I think it's actually the best comic that's come out as part of this whole run from Hickman so far. So, what this does is this picks up with George Stacy, the father of Gwen, and he tells her, right, life isn't fair, that I wish that's not how things were, but it is. And because of that, things are going to be different now, but I have to keep doing my job, and you have to get up every day and continue to become the amazing person your mother always knew you were going to be. And Gwen asks, right, does mother's death ever get better? Right? Do you ever feel better after that? And the response of her father, never. No one ever really gets past losing somebody that they love. But the good news is that they're never really gone. They live on in your heart. And so you follow the story of Gwen. Now here's the cool thing, right? You basically pick up with her going on a date with Harry Osborn. And it's kind of cool to see the two of them basically dating one another because, as you guys can tell, we're following a chronological timeline here. So this is long before Gwen and Harry ever get married. And initially, Gwen had no interest in him, right? Because he was just some super rich guy, and she doesn't really dig super rich guys. And so as the two of them kind of talk and hit it off, and clearly there's some chemistry there, it turns into something more romantic. It turns into something serious. But then that's when Gwen gets a call in saying that they found her father, right? They found the body of George Stacy. And at that point, you switch back over to the original conversation they had, where he tells her, right, they always live on in your heart. But then we get the other half of this, and he says, and no one can take that away from you. You see, as the years pass, your memory of mom will not change, and you will get to remember her in the way that most children would. Perfectly, not ruined by age or learning that parents are regular people and flawed just like everybody else. And the response of Gwen, well, I think you're perfect, Dad. And he says, well, I'm not. I have secrets that many in the world, and especially you, won't find out about until I'm gone. You might not understand who I was. People might say bad things about me. They might say nothing at all because the mystery will hold. Just understand one thing. Everything I've done was for you, so you will understand the world as it really is. That's my legacy to you. And so you pick back up with Gwen, and she's literally talking to somebody that we seemingly can't see, right? And they say, after years of trying, we finally recovered your father's remains. They didn't want to give them up. They didn't want us complete. But now, thanks to good fortune and circumstance, his final wish can come to pass. He wanted you to take his place and join us. Do you know the words? And Gwen says, you guys nailed this, man. Gwen says, the world is a lie, and only through embracing those lies and becoming a master of them can we truly see. Our craft is old, older than the lie. Our power is ageless, the amulet passed from sire to spawn, 1 to wear it, 5 to share it. We are Mysterio. You guys nailed it, man. I didn't believe it. Right? But you guys nailed it in the comments of the video where like Harry Osborn died and it was like, who in the world is Mysterio? You guys said Gwen. I got to give you guys credit here. Here's the other thing though, and I got to ask this question because I was thinking about it. Does that look like the Eye of Agamotto on their heads? It's kind of crazy, right? Like, it's kind of crazy. So following that, right, you pick up 9 years ago, right? And this is when Harry and Gwen Stacy get married. And it's this really, really interesting moment because there comes this point when Norman Osborn, before his death, seemed to know what was going on. Because, of course, during this whole wedding dance and everything, that it leads to Norman and his wife kind of cutting in, which is tradition, right? When it comes to the wedding, the kids dancing with the parents is part of the whole wedding ceremony. But when Norman is talking to Gwen, right, initially he kind of busts her balls a little bit, kind of testing her a smidge, right? You know, he's like, I have a little bit of an admission. And she's like, what's that? And he's like, I think you could have done better. And her response, well, that's funny because I said the same thing to your wife, right? You know, so just being able to give that grief back and not having such thin skin. And Norman loves that, right? Norman loves that she can just kind of let it roll off of her and give it right back to him. And so he says, I want you to promise me something, new daughter of mine. And she says, what's that? And he looks at her very intently and he says, don't ever let him distract you from what you were put on this earth to do. And she simply says, I can make that promise. Now again, we're not told explicitly that Norman Osborn knows, but it seems like he kind of does, right? And it's really cool because following that, you pick up with their first Christmas together as a married couple, right? And Harry's like, our first Christmas as a married couple, a lot of pressure here gift-wise. I mean, it's really a statement as to how well you've come to know the other person. Do you know them or do you really know them? And so he's like, go ahead, right? Open this thing up. And when she cracks open her gift, it's a book, an actual copy of a book called The World That Is and the World That Was by Jericho Drumm. Now, it is wild to see a Brother Voodoo reference here, but clearly he's not the Brother Voodoo that we know from the main Marvel Universe, right? He is not at one point the replacement for Doctor Strange as the Sorcerer Supreme and a powerful practitioner of the mystic arts. But here is what's awesome here. The conversation between Harry and Gwen really reveals that Gwen seems to know what the Maker did when he showed up and started changing things across the universe, right? That Harry says, let me tell you, super hard to find a copy of that. And we could have put a kid through college for what I paid. Still, I know how much you love your conspiracy stuff. And that's where Gwen's like, you really think it's a conspiracy? Right? Do you know what this book is about? It suggests that the world has two timelines, the one we're currently living in and the one that we are supposed to be living in. It's about tachyon particles and temporal echoes, not flat Earths and chemtrails. It's the real reason you can't find this book anywhere. Now, this is a cool thing, right? Because remember, the whole reason this universe is the way that it is, the new Ultimate Universe looks the way it does, is because the Maker from the original Ultimate Universe couldn't go back to his reality, right? It'd basically been destroyed during the incursions. Yes, Marvel kind of brought it back, but that was Bendis and Marvel ignored it, and so you can just assume that it hasn't existed since its destruction right before Secret Wars 2015. And so the Maker showed up here to this universe and started screwing everything up, changing the universe to look like the one that he was familiar with, but one that he could absolutely control. Now, of course, ultimately he was defeated, but still, right? And that's what Gwen says, right? She says that in talking to Quentin Beck, who is a member of this Mysterio tribe, right? She says, we were right all along, Quentin. Everything we've worked toward, believed in, is real. The world is an illusion fabricated by one man telling a lie big enough to deceive all of humanity. And now he's trapped in a prison of his own making for the next 2 years, right? Remember, the Maker's trapped in the city, and it's just simply a countdown in the Ultimate Universe right now until it opens up and the Maker reemerges. And the question's asked, how do we know this is true? And the response of Gwen, our current elevation under Fisk happened because my husband's parents were killed in the Stain Stark explosion. As a result, and as you already know, our company, Oscorp, absorbed Stain Stark. Then, when we went rifling through all their corporate archives, we also learned of all of this, the real history of the world. And that's the truth, that the Illuminati, right, the group formed by the Maker to control the world behind the scenes, so the Maker didn't have to monitor everything all the time, and the ones who are effectively controlling things in the Maker's absence had quite literally documented everything the Maker did, which you would think they would be smarter than to do something like that, but maybe it was their hubris and their arrogance in believing that even if they did, who was going to stop him? Regardless, the response of Quentin Beck will need to act fast, release the information, and wipe the fog from the eyes of the world. But the response of Gwen? No, we cannot dump this information out there right now. Because she says, you'll understand better after you look at the copies I brought for all of you. But we cannot risk having any involvement traced back to us. Acting fast is flying too close to the sun. And that's exactly what got my father killed. I think we need a better delivery system. And when the question's asked, what's that delivery system going to be? Her response, I don't know yet, but I'll think of something. And that's an important distinction to understand here. These guys are sitting on the reality of how the world is supposed to look. But the problem with this is that there's some mysterious organization operating behind the scenes that no one has any reason to trust. And so if they suddenly dump this information out into the world, hey guys, the world's secretly being controlled by some organization out there, people are going to say, well, I mean, you're a secret organization. How do we know it's not you? And even if it's not you, why should we trust you, right? There's a lot of cloak and dagger stuff, no pun intended, going on here. And so that is when you pick up with the paper. Now, those of you guys who aren't following the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, and you're seeing this for the very first time, I do have a playlist for it. You guys are welcome to check it out. The paper was, or really is, an entire newspaper created by J. Jonah Jameson and Uncle Ben, because in the Ultimate Universe, Uncle Ben didn't die. The idea behind this was that they were disillusioned with the Daily Bugle, because Wilson Fisk had taken over the Daily Bugle and was effectively using it as a propaganda piece now, right? Puff pieces on himself and basically telling lies to the world. And so because of the fact that Jameson and Uncle Ben were so in hot pursuit of the truth, they launched their own brand. It's more or less the Ultimate Universe's version of like Frontline from Ben Urich and Sally Floyd, for those of you guys who remember Civil War. And so the cool thing is when you have this kind of dinner conversation between Harry and Gwen and Peter and Mary Jane, that they're all kind of, meeting up and talking for the first time, becoming friends, essentially. And Mysterio kind of follows Gwen around. Now, here's the kicker about this. We're not told explicitly if this is an illusion in Gwen Stacy's head, kind of like the other half of herself, essentially, or if it really is Mysterio following her around. We will get an answer to this, right? It's important to understand. We will get that. But still, right, in this moment, it's kind of a very personal conversation because you have Mary Jane and Peter who ask Harry and Gwen, like, do you guys want to have kids or anything like that? And the response of Gwen is, children? No. I mean, I'd like to think that I'd make a good mom, but none for us yet. We're considering it though, right? And that's where Mysterio's like, that's a lie, right? And Peter's like, well, I mean, just know it's the best thing ever, right? Like, what's the holdup? And the response of Harry, the world that we would be bringing them into. And that's the truth as far as Mysterio is concerned. And that's kind of the nature of things, right? When you're considering having kids, hopefully you're considering what kind of world you're bringing those children into and how it will impact them as they grow up. And so again, what you do is you switch over to Gwen Stacy having a conversation with Mary Jane Watson. Now remember, Mary Jane Watson is basically the brand manager for the paper, right? She's the marketing side of it. With that in mind, Gwen Stacy as Mysterio, or at least part of the Mysterio group, understands that the best delivery system for essentially this revelation that the world isn't really as it appears to be is through the paper, a newspaper source, which is ran by J. Jonah Jameson, a very trusted person within the news community, even if he was running smear campaigns against various people from time to time. In a lot of ways, his word is beyond contestation. Not only that, once that kind of system is set up, which we know that ultimately the paper does publish those documents, you switch over to a conversation between Harry and Gwen, right? Where literally Harry says, you were right. Ben and Jonah were way less interested in superhero antics than all the maker files that we had. I hope we did the right thing in giving it to them. And the response of Gwen, the wrong thing would be letting the world continue in the direction it's been heading for most of our lives. If they want to do something about it, who were we to stop them? So again, kind of Gwen operating behind the scenes, right? Basically slipping these documents out there in the world, sending Harry and then Uncle Ben and J. Jonah Jameson on this kind of path without them realizing she was the one doing it, and finding the documents. And then of course the documents getting out there into the world. So again, very much a hidden hand in all of this. And so in turn, Gwen basically gives him a drink, right? This is electrolytes. And he's like, do you want to hear something funny? And she's like, sure. And he's like, they thought that it might be you in the suit. They thought that you were the Green Goblin. And Gwen's like, that is hilarious, right? And he's like, I mean, could you imagine that? And she's like, no, absolutely not. I couldn't see myself walking around in a suit. Then you pick up with a few months ago. Now, this was the theory that so many of you guys had. Whether it's true or not, we'll see here in a second. But the first thing to know is that the Mysterio that was following Gwen around is a different Mysterio. That when she made this statement, right, one person to have the power and 5 to share it, that seemingly the Mysterio persona rotates between members of the group. So no one person ever stays Mysterio for long. And so if one person gets caught, the entire Mysterio persona isn't destroyed. It's not lost. It's a pretty ingenious strategy. And so when Gwen Stacy shows up, at the home, the question is like, what are you doing here now? Like, I don't really have time for this. And the response of Mysterio is, I found him. I found your husband. Now, this kind of bookends into the story where Kraven the Hunter had kidnapped Harry and Peter and was hunting them in the Savage Land. And that's what Gwen's told here, right? Kraven took him along with his sidekick. He caught their scent earlier and laid in wait until he could act. He kept it all very quiet, but now he makes the mistake of including a confidant of ours into his schemes, all because Kraven wants to hunt them in the Savage Land. So the Mysterio that Kraven was talking to when the whole hunt and everything was going on, that was not Gwen Stacy. And so that's where Mysterio says, Kraven does not know about our alliance with the Mole Man, and he does not know what the Mole Man has told me, but Kraven does mean to kill them. And that's where Gwen says, the amulet passes from you to me in 2 days. Do I have that long? And the response of Mysterio, I asked our friend to buy us some time. And she's like, thank you. And then Mysterio says, one other thing. Are you aware that you're being followed? Now, of course, Mysterio follows her along as she goes and she confronts Dr. Octopus, right? Otto Octavius. Now, Otto Octavius is not the villain that you're familiar with. He's basically the tech guy for Peter Parker and Harry Osborn, kind of helping them improve their suits and so on and so forth. And literally, she comes storming into the room where he's at, and she's like, are you having me watched? And the response of Otto, it was Harry's plan, a security thing that he had me do. If he goes missing, which you informed me of, then the protocols snap into place. So yes, you're being followed and you're being protected. But then he takes it a step further. He's like, forgive me, I would normally never intrude on your privacy, but some of the things that you've been doing and places that you've been going don't really add up. I have a few questions. And that's where Mysterio tells her he's figuring it out. He's realizing you're not who you claim to be. He doesn't know that you're a member of our group, but he does know something's going on. So at that point, Mysterio's like, he's too curious and too close. Cut him loose. Gwen Stacy fires him on the spot. Now, you get to the moment when Harry Osborn gets shot by Kraven the Hunter, right? And you have this whole scene unfolding where like Harry's screaming at him, right? Like, Peter, you have to kill Kraven. If you don't kill him, he's going to kill us, right? It's him or it's us. Suddenly, Mysterio appears and it's just like, don't speak a word, watch. You guys were right. The whole thing was an illusion. The whole thing was an illusion, right? Kraven takes the gun, fires the bullet, kills Harry Osborn. And Mysterio is holding the real Harry the entire time. And so as far as Peter's concerned, everything he's seeing is real. Right? And that's where Peter starts to freak out. He attacks Kraven. He was like, what in the world, right? You killed my friend. That whole thing unfolds. As awesome as it is, where Peter is talking to Mysterio after what basically seems to be the death of Kraven, and it's just like, he killed my friend. And of course, the real Mysterio is like, not hardly. But the fake Mysterio says he's a killer, and that's what killers do. So you have to wonder, if he is good at it, what makes you think your loved ones are safe? Honestly, what makes you think they're even still alive? That whole scenario unfolding with Peter Parker, which of course we saw leading to Peter taking off and basically leaving Harry behind, and ultimately going back to his family in order to try to protect them and grieving over the loss of his friend. But then once Peter's done and out of the picture, the illusion fades. Harry's alive and well, and Kraven's like, what are you playing at, Mysterio? Like, you dare come between me and my hunt? And the response of Mysterio, I do, but only because you came between me and mine. And he's like, so long, comrade, and kills Kraven on the spot. And at that point, Harry's just like, Mysterio? And like, Mysterio unmasks and reveals herself as Gwen. And Harry is pissed and is like, what in the hell is going on? Now, here's the cool thing about this, right? That ultimately, Gwen explains everything. And so at that point, Harry's just like, so I'm dead. You guys had a funeral and everything for me, right? And Gwen's like, yes, you're dead. As far as the world is concerned, you are no longer alive. And the Green Goblin is not dead, which must mean I'm not the Green Goblin. And the response of Gwen, yes, right? There's no way you could be the Green Goblin. Now, here's the kicker about this. Peter knows the Green Goblin's Harry. So if the Green Goblin starts surfing around the city, Peter's going to be like, what is going on? He's immediately going to go after it, right? Which means either Harry's going to have to reveal to Peter the fact that he's actually alive and how it is that he survived, which is basically going to be the whole thing with Gwen Stacy, or Harry can never be the Green Goblin again. he's basically going to have to kind of go underground. If I'm a betting man, I bet all the money in my pockets to all the money in your pockets, Harry's going to reveal the fact that he's alive to Peter Parker. Peter Parker's going to learn about everything with Gwen Stacy, and Mysterio is going to become an ally, because you guys are seeing here, Otto Octavius, so on and so forth. Some of these traditional Spider-Man villains are actually good guys. They're allies to his side. And so if that's the case, and Mysterio and them are working against the influence of the Maker, then what if you get a story where, like we saw with the last video that we did, Sandman is an ally to Peter Parker, Green Goblin is an ally to Peter Parker, Mysterio is an ally to Peter Parker, Otto Octavius. What we're looking at here, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you picked up on it or not, is a non-evil version of the Sinister Six. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.